Yeah. Big bitch. Yes! Yes! Holy crap. This pig. Hey everybody, this is Jeremy from Speak Gear, and I'm here today to teach you how to ice fish. All right, the first thing that you need to ice fish is ice. So I'm on a lake today, one of my favorite lakes that I fish all the time. But what you need is a lake that has safe ice. So safe means 4 inches for walking or more. And if you want to drive a machine on the ice, I recommend at least 8 inches of ice. All right, there are a basic few things you need to be able to ice fish. One of those is a way to cut a hole through the ice, and that's the ice auger. Now there's a lot of different ice augers out there right now. If you're on a budget, you want to go with a hand auger. Hand augers are pretty inexpensive, probably $40 to $80 for a good one. There's different sizes of augers, which will give you a different size hole. Typically, most augers are 6, 8, or 10 inch. I like to be right in the middle so I can catch all sizes of fish, and I use the 8-inch auger. Now, if you like to drill a lot of holes, you're going to get a good workout using a hand auger. So a lot of people use a power auger of some sort. There's gas augers, there are propane augers, there are also electric augers. And another affordable way that people are doing it these days are using a power drill and connecting it to an auger. So if you have a drill already that's powerful enough, you can just get an adapter and hook it to an auger base. And that's what I'm doing. I have a battery powered auger, and I'll show you that. So here is my auger. It's an 8-inch auger. Like I said, I've just got a Milwaukee drill on it, but there's other drills you can put on it. This auger is pretty simple. All you do is put it in forward direction on the drill, put it down, and drill. Much quicker than a hand auger would be. Now that you have your hole in the ice, one other tool that a lot of people use is an ice scooper, and this will allow you to clear out the ice from around and inside your hole. If you do a good job, you can get most of the ice out of the hole, but it is nice to be able to skim that out of there and clear it, especially on a cold day like this. Another tool that is pretty handy out on the ice, it's very inexpensive, $5 to $10, is a bucket. Now my bucket's the Cadillac of buckets. It's got a padded seat on the top, but I use the bucket as a chair, and I also put my fish inside there. You can also put fishing gear inside it as well. The next thing you're going to need is a fishing rod. Now, ice fishing rods are short. You don't have to use an ice fishing rod, but they're nice because usually you're up close to your hole, and the rod is short and it fits that distance nicely. A lot of people fish further from the hole with larger rods, and it works for them. Plus, it's also easier to haul these short rods, depending on how you're doing it. If it's in a sled or on a machine or whatever, it's easier to haul small rods, and you can fit several rods into a bag like I do. Most rods are 2 to 3 feet long. This happens to be an ugly stick, pretty inexpensive rod. You can buy a rod reel combo for $20 to $40 pretty easily for ice fishing. They don't have to be fancy rods. The rod you choose will depend on the type of fish that you're fishing for. If you're fishing for small fish like I'm fishing for, which are perch in the range of a ½ pound up to sometimes 2 pounds in other lakes, this is a perfectly good rod. I do like a stiffer rod for the bigger fish, but I would suggest getting a heavier duty rod for larger fish, like pike or walleye or big trout. Choose your rod based on the type of fish that you're going to fish for. I also like a rod that has a medium to medium light action, which means that it's flexible and will allow me to see the fish biting easier. There are some super light rods where the tips are very sensitive, and then there are those that are very stiff, and they all have a different purpose. When you buy your rod, if you buy a combo or if you buy a rod and reel separately, you're going to need fishing line. The fishing line that I like to use is called fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon is an invisible style of line. It has a little bit of stretch to it, so you can't use it for very deep water, and it's also very sensitive. I use the 4-pound test when I fish for perch, sometimes 6-pound when I'm fishing for the bigger ones. But again, you need to choose your line for the type of fish that you're fishing for. And when you buy your rod and reel from the store, you can ask the store to put line on it for you, and you can tell them what type of fish you're after or what type of lake you're going to, and they can suggest the proper line. So when it comes to lures, what I like to use are just tungsten jigs. You want to choose the jig that's the right size for the fish you're trying to catch. Some jigs are rubber or plastic, and they imitate some sort of an animal or creature that the fish would be eating. I've got 3 jigs here that I use a lot. One is just gold tungsten. The other is a pink and white tungsten, and the third is a brown plastic jig. Now, what's the purpose of tungsten over lead? Tungsten is a very heavy metal, and it can get you back down into the water and into deeper water quicker. There are a lot of different bait options out there. Some states have different regulations, so you're going to want to check those before you choose your bait. What we're using today are called maggots, which is the gross word. Some people call them spikes. People also will use wax worms, mealworms, minnows in some states. Some people will use worms or night crawlers. And some people don't use anything but artificial bait like power bait or marshmallows or corn. There's a lot of different baits out there. I'm going to show you how to put the maggots onto the hook. So here is my hook. Here is my maggot. Maggots have a front and a back. The pokey end, the pointy end is their head. The flat end with 2 dots is the tail. And I like to hook them from the rear towards the front. So about 3/4, 2/3 to 3/4 of the way back, I'll put my hook and I'll slide it through the head, and then I'll move that around so that there's room for another one. I usually put 2 or 3 on at a time. So again, I start at the rear about 2/3 of the way, slide it through the head. There you have it. There are some other tools that are pretty handy to use out on the ice. Ice fishing, one of those is a flasher. Flasher is a fish finder that's very easy to move around, and this is something that you don't necessarily need, but it's once you use it, you will probably never be able to fish without it. So this particular one is from Vexilar. There's other companies that make them. Markham also makes them. This allows you to see if there are fish, see what the depth is, and also see if the fish are biting or not biting. There's a lot you can learn with a Vexilar or a flasher like this. All right, let's see if we can put it all together now and catch a fish. I think I mentioned before in other videos, but if you don't see fish right away or catch a fish right away, I would usually wait 5 to 10 minutes, and then I would move to another spot. I like to move about 20 to 30 yards between holes just to find places where new fish might be. There are several different techniques, but there are two that I will highlight today are jigging and dead stick. Jigging is just what it implies. You put your lure down in the water and you move it up and down. That's just designed to attract fish. Sometimes the fish are very aggressive and jigging works great. Sometimes the fish aren't very aggressive and they like something that's not moving, and that's called dead stick. Dead stick is where you just would leave your rod on a bucket or laying on the ice and you just watch the tip of your rod, and as soon as it goes down you set the hook. With jigging, I like to do a lot of big motions until I see fish or detect that there are fish down there in some way. And then I like to slow my jigging down, make it smaller motions. The big jigs are to attract the fish. Smaller jigs are to make them want to eat. Depending on the weather, there are a lot of other parts of gear that you can use to keep warm. Mainly talking about clothing here. I like to wear warm waterproof boots. The ones I use are muck boots. They're like rubber boots that are insulated. They work pretty good. A lot of people will use Sorels or other winter boots, and as long as they're waterproof, it's great. A lot of times on the ice there will be slush and you'll get wet, and you don't want to have wet feet. Also, you can wear some sort of snow pants or bibs or coveralls. And usually the best thing to do is layer. Layering with your upper layers is the best. And as the weather changes, you can add or remove layers. It's a lot like going skiing or other outdoor activities in the winter. Obviously, you'll want to use some sort of gloves most of the time and some sort of hat or hood. I have my gloves off right now because I just can do things better without them. One other piece of gear that a lot of ice fishermen use is a sled. And especially if you're walking, you can use your sled to pull your gear behind you as you walk out. And it's a lot easier to move all that equipment, especially as you gain more and more equipment. But it's easier to carry an ice auger, rods, etc., bucket, if you have everything in a sled. And I recommend a heavier duty sled, not just a sled that you would give to your kids for Christmas. But there are some dedicated ice fishing sleds out there that are just thicker plastic and they have high walls. You won't lose your gear. They don't tip over. Last thing I would say is, if you get into ice fishing, you want to take some kids ice fishing with you. If you don't have kids, take somebody else's kids. But it's a great pastime for everybody to enjoy. And here we go. We caught our first fish. And he's a monster. I'll have a link in the description on how to clean these fish, and also I'll show you how I cook them as well. So those are the basics of ice fishing. So you should be able to take what I've shown you today and go out and have a fun day out on the ice and have a little success, catch some perch, bring them home, and have a nice meal. Here's another one.